Well, good afternoon, folks. It is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. It is close to Memorial Day weekend, which means it is that time of year, folks. It is around summertime, and we kicking it outdoors today, enjoying this warm weather to talk some 76ers, talk about their season, give an overview of all the good and the bad. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles schedule. If you're wondering what his green shirt is underneath, you'll find out later in the stream. But yeah, let's get into it. First, we're going to start this thing, talk about the 76ers and what their season, what went down, because there was a lot of good. There was some good and bad. You had, of course, Tyrese Maxey breaking out as a star, all that. But let's get into it. Let's start with this. Another season with the Philadelphia 76ers where we made the playoffs again, but season ended early. This time, though, was the opening round instead of the second round. During the Doc Rivers era with the Sixers, we had three second round eliminations. Game 7 lost to the Hawks in what was the most embarrassing series loss, the most winnable series of the three that we lost with him. And of course, the Miami Heat. Then, of course, we had the loss to the Celtics last year, that ridiculously awful Game 7 in the second round last season. However, the off season, the Sixers finally realized, oh, wait, Doc Rivers is that coach that's only going to get you so far. You're only going to go first round, second round with him. Sixers finally realized and gave him the axe. Nick Nurse was out in Toronto after a disappointing season. But Nick Nurse, the head coach of the Raptors, when they won it all in 2019, defeating the Golden State Warriors, became the 76ers' new head coach. Went through the whole offseason and, finally we got it settled. Nick Nurse was there. We had to do the James Harden trade in the fall. We got him out. We got Batum was our most notable piece from that trade. Then we did finally acquire Buddy Hield, which we were hoping for, but just didn't pan out that way. Now for the season, it started off real hot with the Sixers, with Joel Embiid dominating early. Sixers were off to a hot start. They're the top of the Eastern Conference through the first couple months through the holidays, but then all of a sudden, Embiid went down. He was out for a significant period of time till late in the regular season, and we saw a tale of two completely different seasons. Sixers with Embiid and without him, because they were 31-8 during the regular season with him. Yeah, let that sink in. 31-8. And then because they finished with 47 wins. So that means it was 47-35 was their final record. So we went 31-8 with him. Without him, we lost 28 games. It was a 13-28 without him. That clearly shows you these were two completely different teams, with and without Embiid. So it was it was a disappointing season in that regard. I mean, granted, I understand you can't control injuries and all that, but at the same time, it looked like they were lost without Embiid. Tyrese Maxey went out there, did his best he could to carry this team, but it clearly wasn't the same team. It was not. That Tyrese Maxey led Joel Embiid-less Sixers, despite Maxey's best efforts, just wasn't the same team. They weren't winning games. They weren't making as strong. And then just as time was ticking, late in the regular season, Embiid helped us win enough games to push up to the 7th seed to get in the play-in tournament, 7 versus 8. We beat the Heat, and I remember we streamed that game, me and Mitch Kofsky, and ironically, we did that with Nick Batum leading the way. So we got in as the 7th seed. We played the Knicks in the opening round. On paper, it looked like a potentially winnable series despite us being the 7th seed, and it was. I mean, it was a winnable series, and to be fair, the Sixers were competitive even in those losses, but thing was they just could not close games against the Knicks. That was the thing. They could not close those games out. They went out there, they played good, they put up a solid effort, but they simply couldn't close. And some people will blame game 2 on the referees for that blown call. And yes, that was a factor, but we're going to blame that on game 1? Are we going to blame that on game 4? Are we going to blame that on game 6? Because there are plenty of other factors we can look at in that series, too. Like the bench not stepping up, because we pretty much had an awful bench in that series. And then game 6, the one thing that stands out the most, and I'm not going to solely blame this one player, but it is the thing that stands out most. It is Mr. Tobias Harris himself with 0 points in an elimination game. 0, who's supposedly supposed to be the number 3 guy on this team, in theory, scored 0 points. Let that sink in. Yeah, 0 points by Tobias Harris in Game 7. I mean, I saw him throughout the season with Nick Nurse. We saw some flaws in his coaching game, too, was another thing that stood out, because it seemed like once Embiid was gone, he didn't have a plan B without him. You saw that through the regular season, that 13-28 record without him. We saw that he didn't have a good backup plan that could help maximize those guys' potential. It wasn't there. And then in the playoff series against the Knicks, the minutes without Embiid killed us in that series and played a role in us losing a lot of close games. Now, again, it's not the only factor, but it was a factor. So clearly Nick Nurse didn't know how to build a good game plan without Embiid there. And what's ironic, we talked about this last week on the Pick and Roll podcast, that even if a player goes down, a coach should always have a plan B, a plan C. And shout out to Blaze Radio for bringing that up last week on episode 71. And clearly we did not see that, though, with the Sixers with Nick Nurse, which makes me wonder, looking back on it, maybe there's a reason the Raptors didn't succeed without certain players after that championship run. Can't help but wonder, was that part of the thing? And now we're starting to see it now with the Sixers too? Because it seems like what we notice now through Nick Nurse's one season with the Sixers and his time with the Raptors, we notice is he's at his best, his team's at its best when his star players are there. But the problem is he doesn't know how to adjust and put together a good game plan without them. I mean, I understand if you're missing a superstar player, it's hard to make a deep run and win it all, or it's hard to continue to blow through everyone and get the number 1 seed. But even then, if we would have done a better job game planning with Maxey, and we would have done, decent job with Paul Reed, incorporating Kelly Oubre more during that stretch and B was missing, we could have at least gotten the 4 or 5 seed at least. We wouldn't have blown through the East like we were with him, but we still could have. We could have prevented ourselves from falling all the way into the play-in if Nick Nurse did a better job strategizing during that time. Like I said, maybe we could have got the 4 or the 5 seed and played a better record, maybe more like 21-20 without him, or 20-21 without him. Maybe we lost a lot. Maybe we could have done a little bit better in that regard. But still, man, yeah. So hopefully Nick Nurse realizes at some point, like, okay, man, I know it was tough not having a superstar player, but we got to do a better job game planning without him. Because throughout the season, though, that was the biggest thing. You could tell clearly Embiid was the MVP of this team. And here's the thing, another big thing, too, that caught my attention. The lack of rebounding for the Sixers all season long. They ranked officially at 24th in total rebounds out of all 30 teams in the league for the season. 24th, that's a big thing. There was no rebounding coming. And even if they were a handful from Nick Batum, but it wasn't much. And outside of that, what did Batum really do beside that good scoring game against the Heat in the playing game? We didn't see much from Batum at all. It was like he was practically non-existent sometimes. And then you had, of course, Tobias Harris. Oh my gosh. And you would get like maybe a couple 20+ point games from him, but a lot of times we'd be like 12, 14 point games from him. And usually Tobias would have a really good game, throughout his tenure with the Sixers, not even just this season, but throughout his whole tenure with the Sixers, this season included. You'll see Tobias Harris will put up a good, nice 16, 17, 18 points throughout the regular season. Then games against teams like the Hornets or the Pistons. But then all of a sudden, when it comes time to step up against top teams, you'll get maybe 9 or 10 at most. Well, he'll get outscored by at least 2 or 3 other possibly 3 or more players even. And we saw against the series against the Knicks, he had that one decent game where he got close to 20 in that Game 5 win. Was it Game 5 won? But then what happened in Game 6? What happened in Game 6? Zero. 0 points. I mean, this was even statistically worse than Ben Simmons' final game with the Sixers in that Game 7 against the Hawks in 2021. I mean, that's a shame, too. Because Tobias Harris, that when he was there that second whole season, that 2020-21 season, I thought he should have made the All-Star team that year. I thought he was a snub that year when we got the number 1 seed. But then since then, what has he really done since then? And Tobias is supposed to be an X factor for the team, but I remember this right here. Back a few years back, Daily Dripperson was the YouTuber. He made a video calling Tobias Harris the X factor during that season we got the number 1 seed. And what happened? When we saw consistently, when he was only averaging between 10 to 13 or 9 to 13, in big games, the Sixers couldn't close out. But when Tobias would occasionally get close to 20, which is only like a handful of times in big games, they would somehow win. So Tobias Harris was an X factor, but he was an X factor who didn't do his part. And that's Tobias Harris's tenure with the Sixers for me, right there in a nutshell. The X factor for the team who didn't live up to his role of being the X factor. So his contract is up. He can go, move on. I'll leave it at that. Not going to really rant about him. You guys know, hey, he can move on from him. So that's something we can do right there. And we saw, so there was also, despite the fact that we made the playoffs, there was a lot of bad. And it's like, I mean, we were better during the regular season. I mean, some people say, well, we're better during the regular season with Doc Rivers. Yeah, but that was also when Joel Embiid was healthy through most of the season. Here, he was only active for a small portion of the season. So this doesn't even really contribute to coaching at this point. This contributes to something much more. The roster structure, the team building. This team is not built to do anything without Embiid. It's that simple. We've seen it plenty of times over the years. It happened this year, and it was most prominent. So now, so they got to do something to build up this roster. Something, and the coaches, they got to have a plan B or a plan C for if he's not there and he's not active. You need to get yourself a decent backup center. With Andre Drummond, it felt like we had that. But then remember, we traded him and Seth Curry, who were two of the best players in that 2021-2 season, as part of the Ben Simmons trade, because we had to give the Nets something to justify taking Ben Simmons. But we lost out on Seth Curry, who was a solid bench scorer, and Andre Drummond, who was a decent backup center. We haven't had a solid backup center since. We haven't really had a good scorer or guy who can come in off the bench since Seth Curry. And the Sixers got to find some better scorers. I think Cameron Payne, when active, showed he could be a decent bench guy, but we didn't see him that much. We saw him in that Game 3 win. I was watching that game. It was ironic because it was my birthday. I was out watching that game at the Chickies and Pete's nearby at the bar, and guess what? All of a sudden, Cameron Payne comes in. He's starting to perform. I turned to the guy next to me. I said, it's about time they put him in. And we saw that game. He did something. But the thing is, we didn't see enough of Cameron Payne to know if he could consistently deliver in that bench role. We only saw him a handful of times. That's all we got out of him. And it's a shame. But yeah, that's the Cameron Payne. I think we should keep him to see if he can actually be a valuable piece on that bench or not, because he showed he has potential to when utilized, but we didn't utilize him that much. And then we got a gem out of it. Kelly Oubre Jr. He actually showed that he could be a decent third option for the team. I mean, and it's cool because he's a Philly guy, so he's got that connection. He came in, he was scoring 15, averaging 15, 16 for us. And that's solid for a third guy, especially in this era, this scoring, this high-scoring, offensive-friendly era of the NBA. You need that. So there we go. We found a decent gem. And you know what? I mean, I hate to bring his name up again, but he was better option there than Tobias Harris, that's for sure. But, I mean, he was certainly a much better option than Tobias Harris. So Kelly Oubre Jr., bring him back, please. He is a solid option on that team. He can actually get some points for us instead of having to rely on Embiid and Maxey to do all the work. That's one to keep right there. Buddy Hield, he started off hot on this team and justified keeping him, but after a little bit, he kind of got cold. And it was like, I don't know, it was kind of a mixed bag. It was a little bit of a letdown to a degree. Because it feel like, Buddy Hield, if we bring him back, hopefully he could still be a decent scoring option in that team. Maybe he could be maybe it's Oubre, Maxey, and Embiid, and then you got Buddy Hield if he can, because he showed there early on that he could score for us. Maybe he could be a decent option. But it's just like, sorry a second, I'm just putting some sunscreen on my feet right here. Real quickly, I'm sitting outside. And I look around at the rest of the roster. Batum, now apparently, Nick Batum, I have a little bit to say about this here, so hold on a second. Batum, Embiid apparently wants him to stay. You guys remember I dropped a short vid on that where I showed a screenshot from the IG post confirming that Embiid wanted Batum. And then I remember I was shaking my head. But yeah, so now that I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Now, I don't know. Maybe Batum maybe Batum brings some good chemistry to the team. Maybe he's cool with his teammates. I don't know because I'm not there. I'm not sure what Embiid sees in the guy. But at the same time, I look at Batum. What did he do for us? He had one good game in a playing game, but what did he actually do in the series against the Knicks to help us? Nothing. Ever since Batum got signed by that massive contract by the Hornets in 2016, what has he really done? He's overrated. He had one solid season on a contract year nearly a decade ago and hasn't really done anything significant since. And we saw it this year. Now we see why he was considered a flop with the Hornets and why the Clippers were desperate to give him up in that Harden trade. On one hand, yeah, you with these trades, though, sometimes when players give up certain pieces that have some negative qualities, maybe there's a reason they're so willing to include that player in that package. Batum had some red flags going back to his time with the Hornets. Maybe there's a reason they were giving him up. Maybe that's something Sixers should consider when they're looking for trade partners and they're looking to get a player from it. Like, if this player with red flags is someone that your trade partner is willing to give up, then maybe there's a good reason for it. Like Paul Millsap in that Ben Simmons trade. Maybe there's a reason the Nets were willing to give up Paul Millsap, and you saw that when he was with the Sixers. He was not that guy as the backup center. He did not fill Drummond's shoes. I'm just saying. But yeah, but on a serious note, though, man, the Sixers, they got to build a better roster. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up a list of the NBA free agents. Free agents coming up this offseason. We'll go through them. If you guys want to comment on the chat, feel free to do so. Feel free to do so. Hold on a second. I'm going to share the link. I'm going to put the link out there. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We can go through this right here. You guys can comment. Let me know who you think are good options for the Sixers. Let's do this. Let's scroll down. So we got restricted free agent, RFA, unrestricted, team option, player option, early termination option. Got Kyle Anderson for the Timberwolves. Decent piece. He is unrestricted. Thanos, I'm sorry. No, I'm not really impressed by him. Mo Bamba, no. Nick Batum, no. Malik Beasley? All right. Pat Beverly, we tried with him. We moved on. Sadiq Bey, well, he's restricted anyway, so we ain't got to worry about him. Alex Burke, unrestricted. And initially, the Pistons were trying to... what's crazy now that I think about it? One thing I forgot to bring up my Tobias rant is the Sixers had the opportunity to get rid of him before the playoffs. The Pistons were originally willing to give up Burke and Bogdanovic for Tobias. We could have had those guys. And we saw those guys play a role in us losing to the Knicks. So that's our karma right there for passing on that trade opportunity. Because those guys could have been our asset instead of a thorn in our side in that series. But Alex Burke, maybe we learn from it. Maybe try to pay up, give him an offer. He's unrestricted. I'd be cool with that. Hey, Nick Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie, I'm not too high on. No, DeMar DeRozan, nah, I'll pass. Not a fan of him. Who else? I saw Malik Monk was a free agent. I know running back Phillies kind of would like to have Malik Monk, and you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I would like to have him too. And there's Donovan Mitchell could possibly get traded, which I wouldn't mind Donovan Mitchell, but the question is, what will we have to give up? I wouldn't mind having Donovan Mitchell on the Sixers. That'd be a good one. I think Malik Monk would be a decent piece. And there's a few decent pieces I feel like we could get out of this. And no, we don't need DeAndre Jordan. Kyle Lowry, nah. We tried with him, didn't work out. D'Anthony Melton, nah. I think we can move on. I'm looking around. Now we got to bring back Oubre, definitely. Payne, let's try to bring him back. Tyron Prince, I'm not too sold on. Saric, no. Klay Thompson. TJ Warren. I mean, when healthy, he's a decent piece, but I don't know if we could really rely on him that much due to his injury concerns. So, of all these guys that come to mind right here, I mean, the main guys I could think of that come to mind. Quick recap of what I think some of the moves the Sixers should try to make, guys they could try to go for. Try to go for a Malik Monk, maybe. Maybe also try to go for Malik Monk. No, not Markelle Fultz coming back. That's not happening. Maybe try to go for a Malik Monk. Maybe try to bring in Alex Burks. There's a guy we could try to go after, maybe. Malik Beasley, I wouldn't mind. Kyle Anderson, there's a few decent guys we could try to target right there. But my main things are bring back Oubre, bring back Cameron Payne, let Tobias walk. Maybe try to give some consideration, like I said, to guys like Kyle Anderson's a guy you could consider. Alex Burks, a guy you could consider. Maybe Malik Monk. There's a few decent pieces we could consider. TJ Warren, he's okay at times, but not really sold on him. I'd prefer to go for an Alex Burks more so, or maybe Kyle Anderson, but definitely try to bring Cameron Payne back. Maybe Malik Monk, that would be a good one if we could try to get him. But those are my guys right there I think the Sixers should try to go for. Now, as far as the draft goes, I'll get into that more as we get closer to the draft. So for now, though, yeah, there's my Sixers talk right there. My list of free agencies. So in the season, disappointing season. We tried everything. Disappointment. We saw this team struggle to adjust without Embiid. They need to do that better next season. Come up with some guys that can help in that role. And I'll leave it at that for now. But before I go, I'm going to talk briefly about the Eagles' schedule. Give me one moment. I'll be right back. I'm back. And now you finally see what the green was underneath. Check it out. Number 26, Saquon Barkley. That's right. Saquon Barkley is now a Philadelphia Eagle. So I'm rocking that Kelly Green Saquon. I shared it already on Twitter. And yes, sir. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles' schedule. Now, this last part's going to be relatively shorter because, let's face it, we don't know yet how everything's going to play out. We can have an idea on paper. It can look like it's going to be great on paper. Like, oh, we could win this game. We could win this game. We could win this game. And some of that could turn out to be true, but we still don't know yet because here's the thing we got to consider. A couple things. Number one, what's going to happen come game time? What are we going to do then? All right, so we're going to take a look at the schedule right here. We're going to go over what we think could happen here. So we got week 1, we got the Packers game, Friday, 8:15, overseas in Brazil. And that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, the Packers are fresh off a run to the divisional round last year. They beat the Cowboys in the opening round, first 7 seed to beat a 2 seed. And then after that, we defeated after that, they lost to the 49ers, but we'll get to see what's going on here against this game against the Packers. This could be an opportunity to set the momentum for the season right here. Go against a team that, who knows, maybe the Packers are an improved team next season. Maybe Jordan Love takes that next step. And this could be a test game, I think, for us, honestly. This game against the Packers is a test game to see how the Eagles fare, how they've adjusted with the new coaches, see where the new players stand, what they need work on, what they're good at already. This being an opportunity to maybe get some momentum going. This could either be a big win that could get some momentum in our favor and reassert us as contenders, or if we lose, this could be we need some work and we need to try to get hot later in the season. This game, we'll see what happens. But either way, this could be a win on paper. It should be, based on our talent versus their talent, because we do on paper have the better talent, but come game time, we will ultimately have to see what happens there. And then we got week 2, the Falcons on Monday night. So this will be the 3rd straight year, week 2, against the Kirk Cousins team. At least it seems like it right now, unless he's not the starter. But we know the Falcons are going to themselves a little QB controversy, and yeah, I'm not too high on the Falcons. If we're really as good as we're advertised, we should be able to win this game, at least win that one. Then we play the Saints week 3. That's another one of those games. If we're as good as advertised, we should be able to win, at least win 2. We possibly could win all 3 of those games. But definitely weeks 2 and 3, we should definitely win. And even week 1. I mean, if the Packers are actually a good team and we beat them, that's a good momentum center right there. Then you come down, you have a couple easier games, could get to 3-0. And then you got the Buccaneers game. You play them in Tampa. Revenge from the wild card round. We'll have to see what happens this time around. I mean, who knows what Baker's going to do this time around? Maybe Baker regresses because he is kind of a streaky quarterback. Maybe the Bucs. I mean, we never really know what could happen at this point, but that does look like a winnable game. Week 5, we got the bye. Week 6 against the Browns. Hey, that could be a tougher game than expected to. I mean, the Browns did put up a solid run last year, making it to the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't sleep on them again. I mean, Kevin Stefanski knows how to sometimes get the best out of these teams. So maybe it happens again, but who knows? That could also depend on their QB situation, what happens there. That could be a tougher game. Week 7 against the Giants, that should be a win. Week 8 against the Bengals, I think that's all going to depend on Joe Burrow. Is he healthy or not? How's he do when he comes back from that injury? Those are going to be big factors right there in that Bengals game. Then you got week 9 against the Jaguars. That should be a winnable game right there. With the Jaguars, though, they're one of those teams. What team are you going to get? Are you going to get the hot Jaguars that know to win games? Or are going to get the complacent Jaguars that lose it and are out of it and end up falling apart. Are we going to get the Jaguars we played early in the season 2 years ago, or the Jaguars that started hot early last season? That'll be interesting to see, because usually they're a tale of two seasons. Either they start off cold or they start off hot, then go the opposite direction late in the season. That could be a win, though. Cowboys week 10. They're not as strong a team as they usually are, so that could be a win right there. I mean, so far, a lot of these games are winnable, but then you got Washington. Well, it depends. How improved are they with their new QB? That's going to be the big question right there for the Commies. Week 11 game. And hold up a second. Let's see, week 12 against the Rams. We beat them last year. See what that team is. They're good or not. Week 13 against the Ravens. That's going to be a tough one as long as they're healthy at that point. Especially if Derrick Henry, Lamar are healthy. That could be a tough one right there. Depends on where we're at that point. Could go either way. Panthers, that should be a win right there. Steelers week 15 at home. I mean, hey, usually with the Steelers, we play well against them at home. We have a record of doing well in the home games. So we should be able to beat them on paper. We will have to see. And then we get the Commanders week 16. We'll see what type of team they are. Week 17, Cowboys. Then week 18, Giants. They look like winnable games. I mean, you look at the schedule right here. A lot of these games look winnable. Maybe they could, maybe they might not. But I could see the Eagles possibly being an 11, 12 win team right there. Possibly getting it. They should be able to win the division this time around, but we'll wait and see. You never know what can happen. Maybe Washington surprises everyone. Maybe the Cowboys even surprise us a little bit. Who knows? But we see. But we should be able to win the division with 11, 12 wins. It's too early to tell, so I'm not going to go and make any specific predictions. But on paper, this looks like it should be a good season for us. Maybe it could get us the 2 seed or maybe home field advantage, depending on how the NFC plays out. But we will see, though. But yeah, thanks to everyone that tuned in. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're enjoying the warm weather, at least for a little bit today. So have a great Tuesday afternoon and evening. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more content. Tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Pick and Roll Podcast, episode 72. My channel on the Hardcore Sports Network. Catch me, Blaze, Mitch Kofsky, Coach Ed, and company tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to discuss the conference finals and more. So, yeah, again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Till next time, peace.